All right, we are on air here. Thank you for joining us for today's one-on-one discussion with Finance's Demystified CEO, Dominique Broadway, to discuss how to prepare for financial freedom. My name is Natalie Madeira Cofield, and I am the founder of Walker's Legacy. Founded in 2009 and named in honor of Madam C.J. Walker, Walker's Legacy was created with a mission to cultivate an ecosystem of access designed to inspire, equip, and engage a global network of professional and entrepreneurial women of color. You can learn more about our organization by joining us online at www.walkerslegacy.com. Before we'd like to get started, I need to thank our partners, Accelerate with Google, for their continued partnership in making today and past and future events possible. So let's get started with today's program. We're going to read the biography of our featured speaker today, Dominique Broadway. Dominique Broadway is an award-winning financial planner, personal finance coach, speaker, finance expert, entrepreneur, and the founder of Finance's Demystified and the Social Money Tour. She has a strong passion for working with young professionals, entrepreneurs, and people of all ages to bring their dreams to reality. Dominique began working at major brokerage firms such as UBS Financial Services and Edelman Financial Services at the ripe age of 21, focusing on clients with $10 million and up in investable assets. And I do have to say here, folks, I have known Dominique and I have watched her work with her clients, and she is absolutely phenomenal. And I'd love for her to share her information in detail so you all can potentially sign up to be future clients of hers when we finish with today's program. So welcome, Dominique, to the Walker's Legacy Hangout.
Thanks for having me, Natalie. This is awesome.
Excellent. So what we've done, as always, is reached out to the women in our network and asked them to ask questions that they would like to pose to you as a way to make this an engaging and involved dialogue. Now, obviously, getting your finances in order is something that's very important to people at every level of their career, including those, most especially, who are thinking of starting their own companies. You need to make sure that you have a little bit of a nest egg to take care of that time where you may or may not have income coming in. And so one of the biggest things that's difficult with financial planning is the fear of it all. A lot of times when it comes to money-related conversations, people get nervous. So the first question we have for you, Dominique, is how do you take the fear out of financial planning and tackling debt?
So that's a big question, or a big, I guess, item I hear a lot. It's like, I'm scared of my money. I'm scared of my debt. And I think that's kind of, I guess one of the best ways to start taking the fear out is to actually take a second and figure out where you are currently financially, right? So if you have a really good and clear understanding of where you are financially, how much money you have, how much assets you have, how much debt you have, you get a good clear picture of where you are. And that kind of removes the anxiety. So people have just an anxiety and fear of sometimes just of answering the phone because it could be a debt collector, or just answering the phone because it could be somebody, your cousin or mom or whoever asking for money and maybe you don't have it. And even just the fear of going to the mailbox and getting what I call hate mail from bill collectors, or just from, just your regular bills every single month. But really, to take the fear out, you need to really just sit down and make a list of all of your different bank accounts and how much money do you currently have in all your bank accounts. And then make a list of all your debt and just look at this one piece of paper and say, okay, this is what I have. And a great tool to do this, if you don't want to actually write down everything, if you're a paperless person like myself, is using a free tool like mint.com, where you can go link all of your different accounts and then look at your mobile app or look at your computer and look at the software and say, okay, this is exactly where I am. This is how much cash I have. This is how much assets I have. This is how much debt I have. And this is what my net worth is. And this is where I really am. And when you're able to figure out where you are, you're able to figure out, okay, this is what I need to do to reach those goals. So for me, that's like the easiest way to take the fear out of financial planning and tackling debt. It's that fear of the unknown is what creates the fear in general.
So one of the things that you talked about was hate mail from bill collectors, which was pretty funny. But you also talked about net worth. And when we talk about net worth, particularly for women of color, what we have found is that we have, in some instances, negative net worth or a very minimal net worth. Now talk to us about how net worth is calculated And if having an asset like a home, which may also be something that becomes a liability for you, right? Because it's a form of debt. If that's okay to have that as part of your negative net worth structure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So, you know how people say there's that good debt and that bad debt. So, you know, having a home would be considered good debt. It's something that essentially can increase in value versus credit card debt, which could be considered bad debt. And let's say, especially if you use the credit cards to buy food, clothes, that stuff doesn't appreciate in value, right? So having that good debt, which also sometimes student loans is considered to be good debt because the student loan is supposed to be able to help you get the job that you need to make more money. That's debatable. But yeah, so that's kind of like the good debt versus the bad debt. But when you're looking at your overall net worth, you really want to look at, like I said, how much assets do you have? So that could be cash, that could be money in your savings accounts, your money market accounts, your checking accounts. That could also be money that you have in your 401k, or your TSP if you work for the federal government, or your 403b, or whatever your retirement plan is. And then you take all those different amounts. It could also be the value of your car, the value of your home. And then you subtract any credit card debts you have, student loan debts, car loans, your mortgage on your home. And basically once you subtract those two amounts, that's how you get your net worth. Most people's net worth when they first start out it is going to be negative. And I always tell people, if your net worth is negative, don't freak out. It's not a big deal. But the goal is to figure out ways that you can get more assets to make your net worth go higher. So even with the home, let's say you buy a home for $300,000, so you immediately take on a $300,000 debt. But essentially, let's say the home is worth $350,000. That means you have $50,000 of equity in your home. So that's technically part of your net worth if you don't have any other debt. So that's basically how you calculate net worth. But yeah, there is like that good debt and that bad debt, and some of it is very debatable. But having mortgage as a debt versus having credit cards is much better.
So what we're hearing is to calculate your net worth, it's assets minus your liabilities equals your net worth.
Basically, yes.
So, well, that's good too, because one of the other things that you talked a little bit about was credit card debt, right? And so we're going to talk about this later in the form of entrepreneurs and how entrepreneurs use their credit cards to help fund some of their business. And you can talk to us about whether you think that's good or bad. But let's focus a little bit on how women, specifically, since that's who we're talking to, can start to make better spending decisions earlier about what they need. I mean, one of the things that I know about you is that you're a budgetista. You have the best clothes and you get the best prices for everything. Yeah. So, for that woman that's considering a student loan or using her student loan to buy Louis Vuitton bags, which happens a lot, what would you tell her about materialism and how it affects your net worth and your future?
Yeah, I am definitely very frugal, not cheap, but I'm definitely very frugal. And we've shopped together. I love a sale sign, but you don't partake in a sale if you're buying things that you don't need. So even if I see something on sale, I'm like, okay, I know I need some new clothes, so I'll go get some, but I'm not going to just go buy stuff just because it's on sale. But material things can really bring you down financially. I've seen people, like you said, use their student loan, their refund check to buy a Louis Vuitton or a Chanel bag. I know I've probably thought about it myself a few times. But those things, it provides that instant gratification that a lot of times does not provide that long-term gratification. So it puts people in this cycle where they're consistently going out and buying that thing, that purse, that makeup, that car that provides that instant gratification, but it really doesn't bring any long-term value, and you have to keep buying these things over and over again. So I know I was talking to a client recently, and she said, oh, I went out shopping for my birthday, and I dropped like $500 at Gap, and then it just kind of spiraled out of control. And I just started buying stuff and buying stuff and buying stuff. And as you can see, that's usually how it goes. And then you look back and you're like, oh no, where'd all my money go? It's typically in your closet. Now, thank goodness there's some like new companies that allow you to sell your stuff back, but you know, you're also losing the value that you're not going to get full price, the time and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're, you know, shopping around when you're buying things. I'm the kind of person like, you can't just sell me anything. I need to shop around first and make sure I'm getting the right price, a good price. But you really want to value your money. Hold on to your money longer than we're holding on to it. You know, we're spending it as soon as it comes in, it goes out. And I'm a hoarder when it comes to my money. I want to keep it as long as I can. So, you know, definitely start appreciating your money. Longer, I always say, you know, your money, it wants a long-term relationship, not a one-night stand. Like, try to keep it longer. So, you know, definitely make sure you're shopping around before you're just buying things. And also realize, like I said, a lot of material things, they're only going to give you gratification for a short amount of time. And you're going to have to keep buying them over and over again. Hence the cycle of not creating and generating wealth.
Yes. Your money wants a long-term relationship, not a one-night stand.
Not a one-night stand.
I hear that. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the best ways to invest your money. So we've talked about how to save your money from a materialistic spending perspective, but let's get into a little bit more technical aspects of where we should be putting our money instead of in a nice pair of shoes.
Yeah. So investing is something I love. I've always been the kind of person trying to figure out how can my money be making more money while I'm sleeping. And investing is a very easy, low-cost way to do that. We're all trying to, you know, be financially free and be able to create that lifestyle that we want and create that financial freedom. And investing, like I said, is one of the best ways to do it. So if you want to get started in investing, I always tell people you don't need to have, you know, $10,000 or even $1,000 to start investing. If you, you know, have, you know, $50 or $100, it's very easy to start investing. But I always tell people don't invest money that you potentially could need or will need in the next few months or even in the next year and a half or so, because you don't want to invest or risk losing your emergency fund or, you know, or the money that you would need for your child or whatever it may be. And I see a lot of people who do that trying to get rich quick. So when you are trying to invest, you know, you can look at some of the low-cost brokerage firms, you know, such as an E-Trade or a Vanguard or a Fidelity or even like a Scottrade, which will allow you to trade and buy shares for like $5, $7, $9. But when you are starting to invest, the next question, once you have your account open, is like, what do I invest in? And I always tell people to actually invest in things that you own, invest in things that you use, invest in places that you frequent. So if you're someone who knows you cannot go a day without a burrito from Chipotle, right? Maybe that means that you should buy stock in Chipotle. I know myself, I'm the Apple girl, all Apple everything, right? So maybe I need to invest in Apple. I know this week I actually purchased PayPal stock. I use PayPal to run most of my business, so it makes sense for me to invest in PayPal. So those are just a couple ways to get started, some places you can get started with investing, and then a couple ways to figure out what you should actually be investing in.
That's excellent. So use your money to invest in companies that are most familiar to you and that you frequent most. And I think a lot of times, like you said, we're so focused on being consumers that we're not really focused on the investor piece of this, because maybe, just maybe, if you love it, so many others do too, and the valuation and the profits that you could reap as an investor in the company can also be something that you can be a part of as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move in to some kind of, you know, job readiness and financial planning discussions. So we have a number of women who are working full-time and want to become full-time entrepreneurs. And in fact, one of the questions starts off like this: at some point I realized that I will have to leave my good government job to put in the necessary time and effort to truly be successful in creating a lucrative business. How do you judge when to take the risk to leave your job as an employee? And what tips do you have for overcoming the fear that you may not be successful, which we can talk about later? But from a financial perspective, what can one do to start the process of preparing to go from full-time employee to the other FTE, which is a full-time entrepreneur?
So it's a great question. So the first part I have to say, you know, everyone talks about, you know, I'm scared to do this. I fear this. I fear that. And my famous saying, and literally words I live by, is don't fear failure, fear regret. And that's something that has really kept me going, like over the past few years when things have got hard. And it's just like, okay, this isn't going as planned, but you know what? I would much rather keep going versus me stopping and saying, oh no, what if I had kept going at this business, or what if I had kept going with that? So I think that a lot of times people focus too much on failure. You're probably going to fail. And maybe don't even think about the word failure, but things may not always go as planned, and so you pivot, right? And that's perfectly fine. So don't let the fear of failing stop you from starting, because you're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have maybe the right man in your life that will be the financial cushion that you're expecting. Your kids are never going to be calm enough. There's never going to be enough that you need to get there. So for most people, they never do anything because it's never the right time. So that's one part. But from a financial perspective, you know, when I started my business, I didn't know I was starting a business, so I probably wasn't as financially prepared as I needed to be. But I will say that I did have a little over a year's worth of salary saved, so that it did give me a little bit more financial confidence to start my business. So mind you, I lost all that money, but either way, it gave me that push that I needed and the confidence that I needed. But essentially, you don't necessarily have to wait until you have a year's worth of salary saved, but you definitely want to make sure that if you're starting your business while you're still working, that your business is able to create or at least generate the amount of income that you're bringing in every month. So example, if you're netting $5,000, or basically, you know, the pay that hits your checking account after taxes every month is about $5,000 from your current job, let's just say, that means that you need to be making at least $5,000 from your business before you make that transition. And I always tell people, don't just make $5,000. You probably need to maybe add on an extra $2,000, because you have to pay taxes. You have to pay health insurance, dental insurance. Your job is covering all that stuff. And a lot of times what entrepreneurs don't think about is those things, right? You have to think about the fact that now you have to start saving into your own IRA or 401k. You have to pay taxes, because taxes aren't being taken out for you when you're an entrepreneur. And you also want to think about, like I said, the health insurance component. I feel like that's the biggest one people totally forget about. Like, oh, I need health insurance. And when you're an entrepreneur, you're more stressed out than you are when you have a regular job. So you're going to be in a doctor more anyway. So you want to think about those different things. But also, you know, I know also mentioning, you know, having, I guess, you know, making that transition. I think those are just some of the key things you want to do. Like I said, making sure your new job or your new business can at least provide you that same amount of income that your job is currently providing, plus, you know, maybe another 1,000 or two more, because it's those extra expenses that you now have to take on that your employer was previously handling.
Awesome. So, okay, let's go back through this. So we need to understand what our net worth is by, as you mentioned earlier, writing down the list of our assets and our liabilities. That assets minus liabilities equals our net worth. When we figure out where we stand from that perspective, then we can start to phase two, start making more strategic and better decisions about how we spend our money and what we're spending our money doing frivolously. And if there are any opportunities for us to have some savings and put some money in the bank for the possibility of us launching a new venture. Then remember, savings can be made at any level of income at any point in your life. Then the third thing I heard was we need to understand where we can invest our money. Some of the money that we have saved, making sure that we don't take money that we need today from money that we can put aside for tomorrow, but being strategic about that pool of money that needs to be saved so that it can, as you said, make money while you're sleeping. Mm-hmm. And now what we're talking about is also being very aware of all of the expenses that come along with being a person and an entrepreneur. So then you kind of have to go back to step one, which is assessing our assets and liabilities against a new set of expenses that maybe didn't exist that way before. So health insurance, when you get it with your company, maybe you just get it with your company. Now you've got to shop around and figure out how much that costs.
Yeah.
So none of this, as you mentioned, is impossible, but all of it takes planning. And sometimes that planning is timing that you have put forward. And some of that planning is planning that the universe has put forward for you, because the number of people starting companies didn't know that they were going to.
Yeah, like me.
Good. So, all right, after we've done all that, we've turned the sign from closed to open on our new retail business. One of the other questions that we have is, what is the best way for entrepreneurs who are solopreneurs to place themselves on payroll?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can go about this. So you can, be a 1099 employee, as they say, through your own company, or doing a W-2. It also depends on the legal entity that you have. If you're a corporation, LLC, things like that. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is when you open an LLC, limited liability corporation, basically what it does, if you're the only owner of the company, your income still flows through your 1040. So essentially, when you're trying to figure out how do you separate those expenses, you still want to keep those expenses separate, although all of the income is still flowing through. So essentially, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can set yourself up. You could go to the bank and set up a payroll system, or using another great one is I believe it's called Zen Payroll. They're pretty affordable. And they give you the ability to set up a payroll system for yourself, or if you want to have employees, or if you want your employees to be 1099. But if you're just getting started and you're not there yet, one of the things that you can do is set it up where obviously you have your business and your personal account, and you can set it up where maybe once a month, let's say once a month, $2,000 is paid to you, or maybe every 2 weeks, $2,000 is paid, or whatever that amount is. But you want to make sure that you're keeping those things completely separate. Now, for most entrepreneurs, when you first start out, your money, whatever, you kind of eat what you kill, so all your money is coming in. But you definitely want to make sure that you're not paying all of your personal bills out of your business account. So example, if you have rent, mortgage, things like that, you don't want those coming out of my new company business account, whatever it is. So those are some ways to kind of keep those things separate. But like I said, set a date or amount that you can pay yourself, so that you can pay your bills. So that also comes back to having that financial awareness. Like, how much does it cost to run you personally every single month? So if you know that all your bills are $3,000, that means that you need to make sure that your business is bringing in enough income, or maybe you can pay yourself $3,000 once a month, or you can pay yourself $1,500 every 2 weeks. So those are just a couple ways to start doing that. And it's actually really simple and really easy to do it. So I think a lot of times when entrepreneurs have that issue of setting it up, it's usually a lack of income that's coming in. And so there's never quite enough income coming into the business where you're like, well, how can I pay myself $1,500 every 2 weeks and we only bring in $1,000? Right? So that's usually where the hiccup comes. But when you start bringing in enough income, you have a contract that's paying the business $5,000 a month. You're like, okay, I can start paying myself $3,000, and that's basically how you set that up. Yeah. Okay.
So that sounds good. Now, one of the things with the 1099 versus the full-time employee piece is, with the 1099, the company is not responsible for paying taxes on the employee. The employee is responsible for paying taxes themselves. So yeah, it hits the company differently. If you're a full-time employee, then you have to pay payroll taxes. As the employer and the employee, you have to pay payroll taxes as the employer, and as the employee, you then have to take payroll taxes out of your own, set of income. Yeah. To make sure that you're paying federal and Social Security and all that other kind of stuff.
And also, too, you want to, talk to your tax professional and have them run the numbers. I had one of my clients do this recently, where have them run the numbers to see, based on your total financial situation, all your different deductions, does it make more sense for you to be a W-2 employee under your company, or does it make more sense for you just to remain, as a 1099 or contractor under your company? or, the income just flowing through. So you definitely want to look at all the different options to see what works best for you and your situation. If you have children, you have those deductions, or if you have a house, you may have that mortgage interest deduction. But if you're single, sometimes you don't have any deductions, so it may be better for you to stay and have it flowing through so you can write off your business. So
yes, and those are all very important things to consider. So while we're talking about revenue generation for a company, one of the questions we have here is, what is the best way of understanding what you need to be charging for your services? And how can you kind of find a point maybe where you realize maybe you underbid yourself or you overbid yourself, and how can you make changes to your pricing while you're still in business?
Well, the cool thing about being an entrepreneur is you can change your prices at any time. I see, especially women always undercharge. They're like, I just want to help. Like, you can't pay. You can't call your mortgage company and say, I'm paying you with the help that I did for others. No, that's not how it works. So you have to, when you're setting your prices, obviously looking around and seeing what other people are charging, because you don't want to be, charging, $5,000 for something and everyone else is charging $2,000, and you're like, I'm not getting any contracts. Like, yeah, because everyone else is charging a different price. But once you do set your prices, and you may decide that you want to increase your prices, which is something I did last year, the current clients, they stayed on at the current rate, but then new clients were introduced at the new rate. So I don't think it's always appropriate, depending on your service, to go back and say, hey, I just increased all these services by $100, so this is what it's going to be. But I think it definitely depends on your business and what you're doing. But other ways I've seen people, when they are, let's say, I know I have a client who owns a hair salon, and when she raised her prices, she sent out a notice saying, hey, all prices will be, increasing by 15% this year. This is the new pricing schedule. So anytime when someone came in, they were already aware and alert of what the new prices will be. And I always tell people too, you could put a little asterisk on your pricing schedule that says, hey, these prices are subject to change. At any time, at your discretion, because you're the boss, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think that's the way to do it, but you can't, just like, hey, I was charging you $100 today, and then next week I'm going to charge you $500, and people are like, wait, what? Like, and also sometimes you may want to explain to them why your price is going up. Maybe you're adding a different service. Maybe you're moving to a new location that will offer additional benefits. So sometimes you may want to justify the price increase, especially if it's something that could be somewhat drastic.
Okay. So what we also heard was you can't pay your bills with help, rent. You have to actually pay your bills with real money.
Real money.
And so, I think that there's something very serious to that, though, Dominique. For everything you do, there is a value placed to your time. So, sometimes we do give of our time, but there should be some way to connect that to an opportunity for you to make money. At some point, and using that as an aside, I want to go to the next question, because I think this is a perfect example of such. We have one of the women who submitted a question asking this, how do you go about getting a financial advisor or a financial planner? Mm-hmm. And obviously we have Dominique Broadway, Finances Demystified, who has some really amazing online tools. Soon to be, we hope that she has her own version of mint.com, so we can give you Broadway Finances Demystified online to get your budgeting system together. But also does some amazing financial planning and financial advisory for a number of clients with a very broad range of personal incomes and net worth. So Dominique, tell us a little bit about how someone would go about starting to work with you or any other financial advisor.
Yeah, so when you're looking for a financial advisor or planner, there's a couple different things you want to look for. I have to say, most people that find me, they say that they Googled, everyone uses Google, that they say that they Googled, the best financial planner for millennials or best financial planner for young professionals, and that's usually how I come up, because I made the list as one of the top financial advisors in the United States for millennials, and because of that, anytime people search for that, it consistently comes up. So search for what you're looking for. So you may say, hey, I'm a millennial and I'm looking for someone who can work with me. Maybe that's how you're going to begin your search. But in addition to that, when you do start finding people, contact a couple different financial advisors. It's kind of like a relationship. Me and most of my clients are super close. I am very straight to the point with them, no BS, keep it 100, and they like that, right? So you want to make sure you're interviewing a couple different financial planners or financial advisors and making sure it's someone that you feel comfortable with, someone that can relate to you. Someone who can honestly understand your goals and the things you're trying to accomplish, but also from a numbers standpoint, you want to make sure you understand how they get paid. You should ask your financial planner, how do you get paid? So for our services, everything is a flat fee. It's fee only. We don't get commissions for anything. So if you come work with us, I'm like, hey, this is what the fee are, and this is what the fees are, and this is what you get. Some financial planners are 100% commission based. There's not anything necessarily wrong with that, but just understand that they make money by selling you certain products. So maybe they're going to sign you up for a life insurance policy or sell you, a Roth IRA or things like that, and that's how they make their money. So you want to make sure you understand that. Another reason that a lot of people will come and work with me is because after they started looking for their financial planners, they realized that a lot of financial planners and brokerage firms have a minimum asset requirement that you have to have. And that's actually one of the reasons that I started my business. I felt like, financial planning should be for everyone. It shouldn't just be for the high net worth clients that we were working with. They already have $30 million. I mean, they're technically okay, right? Let's help everybody else get there. And that's one of the reasons that I started my business. So you want to ask your financial planner, do you have any minimums? Do I need to have a certain amount of assets to work with you? We don't have any minimums or anything like that. But I was talking to someone just before this call, and they had found a financial planner that they actually liked, and she said, hey, you have to have at least $500,000. And she was like, oh, well, I'll call you in a couple years. So you want to make sure you're asking those questions so you're also not wasting, your time and getting excited about somebody and realizing that you don't even, they're not going to put the time into you. So those are a couple different things that you want to look for when you're looking for a financial planner. But it's a relationship thing. It's really about finding someone that you're comfortable with. Because typically most of my clients I've worked with since I started my business, or obviously now, we're going to work together for years to come, because financial planning is an ongoing thing. It's like you don't go to the doctor once when you're born and you don't go back, right? You got to keep going. Every year you need those health checkups. You need your financial checkups. So those are just some of the things that you can do and questions that you should be asking when you're interviewing financial planners.
All right. So Dominique, how can they get in contact with you? Because you seem to be the woman to know when it comes to financial planning. And we definitely hope that you get a couple of new clients to add to your growing and expanding database there. So how can someone get in contact with you, Dominique?
Yeah, so definitely you can go to my website. It's just dominiquebroadway.com, and spelled out just exactly the way it is. That's my website. My Twitter is at Miss Finance Coach, MS Finance Coach. Instagram, I love Instagram, at Dominique Broadway. And also on Facebook, it's Facebook.com/Miss MS Finance Coach. That if you just type my name into the Google search bar, all good things come up, including the website. So I'm very, very easy to find. So if you're interested in becoming a client, go to dominiquebroadway.com, request a discovery call. You can select the time that works for you, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we can help you bring your dreams to reality.
Awesome. So Dominique, here's the last question that I have for you.
Yes.
It has to do with having additional streams of income and diversifying your income portfolio.
Yes.
So, we've talked about the entrepreneur, we've talked about the employee. How does someone begin the process of having income streaming in from work, income streaming in from here and there, to make sure that they are actually able to reach some of the financial goals or some of the entrepreneurial goals that they have for themselves?
Yeah, I think nowadays it's almost required to have multiple streams of income, because as you can see, you can get a great job and 3 months later they decide they no longer need your services for whatever reason it may be. Employees are very disposable nowadays, and so it leaves you kind of like, oh no, that was my only stream of income. But I know for me specifically, having multiple streams of income has always been really important. So even if you're a business owner, that could be even setting up multiple streams or having different products or services that you're offering. So I know for my business, you know, being a service-based business, when I started, I'm like, okay, this is cool and all, right? But I can't keep selling hours for dollars. I have to figure out other ways that I can reach people, deliver content to people the way they need it. So I started creating, digital courses and ebooks and things like that that people can purchase as well and still get what they need from me, but I don't necessarily have to always be there. So that was something that worked for me, but also investing, right? So, you know, before the call, I was looking at my stocks. I'm like, oh man, PayPal's down. So like I said, I bought shares of PayPal this week, but it's like, okay, that's down. So I actually lost some money, but next week it'll probably be up. And so that's a whole nother stream of income as well. But sometimes it could be, you know, even if you're, let's say, tutoring on the side, that could be additional stream of income. Or, you know, opening a co-working space, like for other people that I know, creating a stream of income. But there's all these different things that you can do. I was talking to one of my clients and she's going to become a traveling notary. Something I've heard of notaries, but I've never heard of a traveling notary. And basically she'll be able to travel to different settlements and get like $600-700 per just for being there to notarize. I'm like, wow, that's genius. And that's something that she can do on the weekend or Fridays when people are going to settlement. So definitely think outside of the box. You know, if you make good cupcakes, make cupcakes on the side, like whatever it may be, but start using your talents and skills and realizing, like you said earlier, that there's a value that you can bring to other people. And if you can bring a value to someone else's life, 9 times out of 10, they'll probably give you money for it. So you want to just have some of those different multiple streams of income. It's going to be essential to reach a lot of your goals going forward. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So you heard it. So she said if there's a value that you can provide to someone else's business, someone else's career, someone else's life, that there is the possibility of a monetary compensation for that type of problem solving and innovation. And so we need to be out here looking for ways that we can be entrepreneurial and enterprising in every facet of our lives. So like you said, a woman who's making cupcakes and baking cakes, if you love to do it, maybe you might just want to go to a farmer's market on Saturdays and Sundays and get a little bit more spending income. So we have to be creative, we have to be humble, but we have to be hustling if we really want to take ourselves to the next level. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you so much to our special guest today, Dominique Broadway, a good friend and a great asset to Walker's Legacy. Thank you personally to Dominique for all that she does for our organization, both in DC and beyond, and the inspiration that she continues to be for me as the founder of this organization and for the numerous women who are a part of our network. Walker's Legacy Programming looks to bring you insightful, meaningful opportunities for conversation. And, we look forward to having additional women grace us through these online hangouts that you can watch in your bed, at work, in the kitchen while you're making dinner for the kids, or wherever, whenever, at your own leisure. And again, thank you to Accelerate with Google for their generous partnership with Walker's Legacy. And if you are not a member of the organization yet, please make sure you visit our website and register. It's totally free. Hope to see you at the next hangout, and look out for more events happening in your city. Enjoy the rest of your week. Natalie Cofield, thank you so much.